All right, so you're thinking about a writing career.
Well, you've come to the right place.
Yeah.
We are diving deep into RoleCatcher's career guide today.
Specifically, all the juicy insights on what it takes to be a writer in this digital age, really.
And I have to say, this guide really debunks the myth of the solitary novelist, doesn't it?
Hmm.
There's a whole ecosystem of writing out there.
Way beyond just books.
I am so ready to have my assumptions challenged.
So tell me, what else can I be besides, like, the next Hemingway?
Right.
What kind of writing gigs are out there that I might not even be thinking about?
Well, think about every website you visit.
Okay.
Every product you buy with instructions, there's a writer behind all of that.
We're talking about short stories, sure, but also things like grant proposals, video game scripts, even those witty tweets everyone loves.
And with the rise of podcasts, someone's got to write those scripts too, right?
It's true. I never even thought of that.
And speaking of things, I never think about all this technology. I mean, ebooks and audiobooks must have, changed the game for writers.
Absolutely. What's fascinating is how these formats create new opportunities.
For example, interactive fiction, where the reader actually makes choices that affect the story.
Wow.
That's something only possible in a digital format. Or think about serialized storytelling, releasing chapters online, or as individual audiobooks. It's a whole new approach to publishing and engaging an audience.
Okay, that's pretty cool. But even with all this fancy tech, doesn't it still boil down to, like, a writer hunched over their laptop, battling deadlines in their PJs?
Is the work from anywhere dream really all it's cracked up to be?
There's definitely some truth to that image, especially the PJs part. This guide doesn't sugarcoat the fact that being a writer takes a lot of self-discipline. You're responsible for managing your time, meeting deadlines, and staying motivated even when the only one holding you accountable is, well, you.
So it's not all coffee shops and beachside writing retreats then?
There's real hustle involved.
Yeah.
But let's talk about actually getting started.
Okay.
I've always wondered, do you need a fancy degree to call yourself a writer?
That's where this guide gets really interesting.
Okay.
It debunks that myth right away.
Turns out there's no one-size-fits-all degree for writers.
Of course, studying literature or creative writing, that can be incredibly valuable.
Yeah.
But it's not the only path.
So someone with a background in, say, I don't know, engineering or psychology
could make the leap to writing.
Absolutely.
In fact, that kind of diverse background can be a huge asset.
Okay.
Think about it. Writing isn't just about crafting beautiful sentences. It's about communicating complex ideas clearly.
Right.
And who better to write about psychology than someone who's studied it in depth?
That makes a lot of sense.
So if it's not all about the degree, what are the must-have skills for someone who wants to make it as a writer?
Well, the guide highlights a few key areas.
Obviously, strong writing skills are a given grammar, vocabulary, clarity, expression.
Right.
That's the foundation.
But beyond that, critical thinking is huge.
You need to be able to research effectively, analyze information.
And structure arguments in a way that resonates with readers.
So it's not enough to just, spin a good yarn. You need to be a bit of a detective and a logician, too. Exactly.
And here's where it gets even more interesting.
Okay.
The guide emphasizes the importance of something I wouldn't have expected, giving clear instructions.
Instructions? I thought we were talking about writing, not, assembling furniture.
Think about it. Whether you're crafting a fictional scene or explaining a complex concept,
yeah,
you're essentially giving the reader instructions on how to follow your train of thought.
You're guiding their imagination, showing them how to interpret the information you're presenting.
Wow, I never thought about it like that before.
It's like you're building a world.
And the reader needs a blueprint to navigate it.
Precisely.
And here's where the guide gets really practical.
Okay.
It stresses the importance of administrative skills.
And understanding things like copyright law?
Wait, hold on.
You're telling me that on top of being wordsmiths, we need to be legal eagles and organizational gurus?
To a certain extent, yes.
Managing your time, meeting deadlines, understanding contracts, protecting your work.
These are all part and parcel of a successful writing career, especially if you're freelancing or self-publishing.
Right.
There are tools that can help, of course.
Like project management software to keep track of deadlines and invoicing tools to manage the financial side of things.
This is definitely eye-opening.
You've painted a much more nuanced picture of what it takes to, thrive as a writer.
So let's say I've got the skills, I'm organized.
I'm ready to dive in. What does that career path actually look like? Where do I even begin?
So you're telling me there's hope for someone who's just starting out?
Where does RoleCatcher say writers should even begin their careers?
Well, they outline a pretty typical trajectory,
Okay.
from entry level all the way up to senior writer.
Early on, it's about getting your feet wet.
Yeah.
Maybe assisting established authors, doing research, writing shorter pieces.
Think blog posts, website copy, maybe even those blurbs you see on the backs of books.
Okay, so kind of like an apprenticeship.
You're building your portfolio, learning the ropes, making those industry connections.
Exactly.
As you gain experience and credibility, you climb the ladder.
Junior writer, mid-level writer, each stage comes with more responsibility, more creative control,
Right.
and hopefully bigger paychecks.
And finally you reach the peak. Senior writer.
Leading projects, mentoring new writers, really leaving your mark on the literary landscape.
I like how RoleCatcher doesn't just talk about this in the abstract.
They actually give real-world examples of writers at different stages of their careers.
Right.
Like what their day-to-day looks like, what they've accomplished.
It makes it feel much more attainable, you know?
It's one thing to say, you could be a senior writer someday.
Right.
But it's quite another to read about someone who started by writing product descriptions online.
And is now the head writer for a major streaming platform.
Wow.
Those concrete examples can be incredibly motivating.
Speaking of different paths.
There's one big fork in the road I've always been curious about.
Okay.
Self-publishing versus traditional publishing.
I know you can't give me a definitive answer.
Right.
But what does the guide have to say about that decision?
You're right, there's no magic formula.
The best choice really depends on your individual goals and personality. Do you crave the validation and support of a traditional publisher, even if it means navigating a complex and often lengthy process?
Or are you more of a go-getter? Someone who thrives on having complete control over their work?
Even if it means handling all the marketing and distribution yourself.
Exactly.
The guide does a great job of laying out the pros and cons of each approach.
Traditional publishing offers the credibility and resources of an established house.
Yeah.
But it can also mean sacrificing some creative control and waiting years for your book to hit shelves.
Whereas self-publishing gives you the freedom to call all the shots,
Right.
from cover design to marketing strategies, but it also means taking on a lot more responsibility.
And let's be honest, it can be tough to break through the noise and get noticed without the backing of a big publisher. And that's where having a strong author platform comes in,
Okay.
regardless of which path you choose.
Okay, let's break that down a bit.
When you say author platform, what exactly do you mean?
It's basically how you present yourself as an author to the world.
Okay.
Think of it as building an online presence that goes beyond just having a website.
Yeah.
It's about engaging with readers on social media, building an email list,
Right.
maybe even doing public appearances or podcast interviews like this one.
So it's not enough to just write a great book.
You need to be a savvy marketer and networker too.
In today's competitive market, it definitely helps.
And that's where RoleCatcher itself can be an invaluable resource, even beyond this guide.
Oh, right. Tell us how their platform can help aspiring writers like myself.
Well, imagine this.
You're scrolling through job postings, and you see one that sounds perfect, maybe a junior editor position at a literary magazine,
Okay.
but you're not sure if your resume quite hits the mark.
Right.
RoleCatcher's AI-powered tool can analyze that job description.
And tell you exactly what skills and experience are most important to the employer.
That's amazing. So it's like having a secret weapon.
To tailor your application and make sure you're putting your best foot forward.
Exactly.
And here's where it gets even cooler.
Okay.
RoleCatcher isn't just about helping you get through the door.
It can actually help employers discover you.
Wait, seriously, how does that work?
When you create a profile on RoleCatcher,
You can opt in to have your information visible to employers who are actively searching for candidates with your specific skills and experience. So let's say a literary agent is looking for someone who specializes in young adult fantasy.
if that's you, they could find your profile on RoleCatcher and reach out to you directly.
Wow, that's incredible.
It's like having a personal recruiter working for you 24/7.
It really is a game changer for connecting with opportunities you might not have otherwise found.
And if that weren't enough,
They even have a feature where you can practice for interviews with experts who can give you personalized feedback.
okay, I'm sold.
That's way better than just pacing around my apartment trying to anticipate every possible question.
It sounds like RoleCatcher is the ultimate wingman for anyone navigating the writing world.
Absolutely.
And it reinforces something we've been talking about throughout this entire deep dive.
Succeeding as a writer today takes more than just talent and a good idea. You need strategy. You need to be business savvy.
And you need to constantly be learning and adapting.
It's inspiring to hear that there are resources like RoleCatcher out there.
to help make that journey a little less daunting.
Yeah.
Any final words of wisdom for our listeners who are ready to put pen to paper?
And chase their writing dreams.
As you embark on this journey, don't forget that writing is, at its heart,
About connecting with others.
yeah,
So write what you're passionate about, share your work with the world.
and never be afraid to put yourself out there.
I love that. Write with passion, connect with others, and don't be afraid to take risks.
This has been an incredibly insightful deep dive into the world of writing.
Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us.
My pleasure. It's been a fascinating conversation.
And to our listeners, we hope you're feeling inspired to unleash your inner wordsmith.
Until next time, happy writing.